I'm going to be planting peppers, and I'm planting them vertically because I know they'll grow 5 feet or taller. And so I'm planting them 9 inches apart. I simply got my garden marker here and I just scraped it across the garden. And I'm going to be planting the first plant here, and then 9 inches away it's going to be here. Then another 9 inches is going to be here. Then 9 inches here. I'll get my 7 pepper plants in. Then I'll be able to know where I'm going to put my vertical strings, and I'll get those in and get the pepper plants tied up. Just to show you what I have out here in my garden, I've got my gardening planting detail sheet, which is really super important to have, and I have my garden plan layout that I've drawn out here so I know where my plants are going. Then I've got my plants here that I'm going to transplant. Since I'm really new to gardening, I like to buy a couple different plants of each variety and then plant them to see which varieties I like, and then I'll plant those from here out. But before I plant, what I'm going to do is take my hose here and I'm going to get the plants soil nice and moist, so when I remove them from the pot, the soil will stay together and I won't have to worry about root problems. Regardless of what the roots look like, you do not want to try to pull the roots apart, even though if they're root bound. Do not cut them, do not try to separate them or anything like that. I'm going to finish watering down these plants and then get them into the ground. All the plants are in their individual pots, so I just have them marked out here every 9 inches away. I've got them organized in the order that I want them to be grown in. I'll simply take the marker here, put it in the front of the plant. I've already got my hole dug. You can see it's right by the wire. Now I'm going to take off about 1/3 of the leaves, and you do this with any new plant because the shock of the transplant is going to slow down this growth of the plant. I've loosened up the pot. I'm taking the plants out. I am not messing with the roots at all. Do not try to untangle them at all. Simply put it in the hole. Notice I'm putting no pressure on the plant. Putting the plant right down there, and I'm just putting the dirt right around to fill the hole. I didn't put any kind of fertilizer in the hole. I'm just putting the plant right there. You can see it's nice and close to the wire. Just move the soil around the plant without pushing it down. What we have here are 3 plants in a pot, and this is because this is how I bought it at the nursery. This is not a bonus. This is not good because you're going to have to take these plants out and separate them. Well, typically what I've found is that there's one plant that's going to be on the edge, and when you separate the soil here, it's just going to kind of fall out. It doesn't have much root support because it's on the edge. So this is the disadvantage of not planting your own plants. So I'm actually having 3 plants here, and I'm just going to remove this one right here because there just isn't enough soil and there's so much damage to the roots. I'm just going to take that out and not even plant it. I've already got my holes dug here. I'll carefully put this down into the hole and get this planted. But you'll save yourself a lot of money, and you won't have to be throwing plants away if you plant your own seedlings. Now you could say, well, you could give it a try. I could give it a try, but it just isn't worth the struggle that this plant's going to have to go through and the problems I may have here in the garden, so I'm just going to put this aside. On these melons, I'm not going to take off 1/3 of the leaves because there would only be 2 leaves left, but I am going to take off these false leaves. These are the ones that first come out when the plant breaks through the seed. Take those out, and that'll help. You can already see I'm out here early in the morning, but just in the few minutes this has been here, it's already getting wilty. I need to get these watered quickly so they can rehydrate. Now that I have the plants in the ground, I need to give them some nitrogen because I just transplanted them. I keep a bucket of nitrogen right here with all my other fertilizers. I've got my scale here. It's a 20-foot length bed. I'm putting in 1/4 ounce per linear foot, which means I need 5 ounces. So now I'm good to go. I'll just go ahead and spread this out. I'm just going to kind of go right down the watering tube and put this about 4 inches away from the plant. And the watering tube is 4 inches away from the plant. Just going to lightly sprinkle that down here. and then immediately come back and water that in. Because the plants were kind of drying out, I did go ahead and give them some water before I did this step. But generally, if I'm fast enough, I don't have to water, then come back and give them some more. Now I'm coming back and watering in the nitrogen, making sure there isn't any nitrogen left on the plant leaves. Just using a watering wand. I find this very handy. We actually do have a little connection here which allows me to adjust how much water comes out and just to turn it off at the end. Have it on full flow, just watering it down. Don't worry that the plants won't get the nitrogen. We're just basically floating that nitrogen. It's moving all through the soil. You can see that. So you do not need to put your fertilizers right on top of your plants. Regardless of how tall the melons were, the beans, the cantaloupe, and the watermelon, I pretty much planted them down to what I would call the crown, or right here, right below the leaves that I had left on the top. But with the peppers, they were really tall. Even though I did remove a third of the leaves, I did plant them down very deep, but you can still see I've got some here that need some support. Now is the time to put on the vertical supports. Now that I have all my vertical strings tied up next to the plants, and to learn how to do that, please watch my vertically growing video by clicking the link below this video. Now I need to go ahead and tie up my taller pepper plants. Alright, so now I've got my pepper plant here. It's a little bit leaning, so I'm just going to go ahead and start wrapping it around clockwise. And again, I'm wrapping this string around the plant. That's really what's important to know right now. So very carefully doing that. And now that has a little bit of support. So here I'm carefully moving the string around the plant, checking to see where it's going to hit the plant. So actually want to come through here, and there we go. The other ones are too short right now, but that's how you add vertical support to a plant. Even though we only planted these plants 9 inches apart, which is closer than most people would plant them, they're really going to be growing 18 inches apart. Because if you look up here at the top, where we have the strings, here's the first plant, and then 18 inches over from that is this plant. So it has all this space inside of here for air and sunlight to come through. The next plant is over here, but it's growing away from the first plant. So this vertical growing, the way the Mittleider method has it set up, really gives you the highest production from the least amount of space. So there you have it. That is how you grow vertically with the Mittleider gardening method. The last thing I had to do is to put the shade cloth over the top so the sun can come through and give light to the plants without the plants being beat around with wind and heat. The shade cloth that I have over here on my other plants is exactly what I'm going to be putting on this other bed. This is LDS Prepper reminding you, if you are prepared, you shall not fear. And if you grow your garden vertically using the Mittleider gardening method, an automatic watering system, and the Mittleider weekly feed and pre-plant fertilizer, you will have a fantastic garden.